Now let's turn our attention to South Africa and the security crisis in the country. South Africa's violent crime rates are among the worst in the world. They've been rising over the past decade. And as crime gets worse, two things are happening. One, South Africa's police force is dwindling. And two, private security companies are taking their place. The last decade has seen this trend. A 43% increase in private security firms. They've outnumbered the police 4:1. And this trend seems set to rise. Tonight we'll discuss why, but first, let's look at the dire situation that South Africa finds itself in. Do you know what's the murder rate in this country? 75 murders every day. This was in the year ending in February 2023, 75 murders per day. The homicide rate was about 45 per 100,000 people. For perspective, it's about 6.3 per 100,000 in the US. In South Africa, it's 45. So after adjusting for the populations, there are 7 times more murders in South Africa than in the US. 7 times more. It looks much worse when compared to the EU. The murder rate in most European nations is around 1 per 100,000. So a South African citizen is 45 times more likely to get murdered than a European. And this murder rate has been growing over the last decade. There were about 16,200 murders in 2012-13. It shot up to 27,500 in 2022-23. And it's not just murders. South Africa has seen all forms of violent crime grow over the past 10 years. Armed robbery, carjackings, physical and sexual assaults. So people increasingly feel unsafe, and a large reason for that is the state of the South African police. The police service had about 140,000 active officers in 2022, 140,000. That's 17,000 less than a decade earlier. And in the same period, the South African population has grown by around 8 million. Add to this the chronic underfunding of the police.
The reason we have so much crime in South Africa is because organized crime can thrive in an environment where there's a disorganized police force. And we don't have a disorganized police force because they've set out to be disorganized or they've been captured. It's simply because they don't have sufficient resources.
So you can see how crime would get out of hand in a situation like this, and why many officers would opt for an alternative career. So they flock to private security companies where they perform many of the same functions as the police does. Some firms patrol neighborhoods. Their armed personnel respond to break-ins or robberies. Reports say that sometimes even the police ask them for assistance. The police ask the private security companies for help. Other security firms have more specialized roles, like finding and recovering stolen vehicles. What you're watching is one such anti-hijacking unit. Private security personnel are well equipped with assault rifles and bulletproof vests. They have scanners that detect stolen vehicles. They chase down the car thieves or hijackers. They conduct a sort of citizen's arrest. And then what happens to the person who's been arrested? He or she is usually dropped off at a police station. And all of this is legal, by the way. South Africa even has regulators for this. A private security industry regulatory authority, that's what they have. It oversees this privatization of law enforcement. And therein lies another problem. Because if it is private, it is for profit. These security firms do not patrol areas out of the goodness of their hearts. They do it because they're paid to do it. And the result is this: rich individuals or neighborhoods are safe, the less well-off are the ones who suffer. The South African government has vowed to fix this. They want to recruit 10,000 police officers this year, but it's a drop in the ocean. A lot more needs to be done, or South Africa